The phone rang just as I was locking up my boutique, the crisp autumn air carrying the scent of rain. I almost didn't answer. Probably another late vendor call, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Mrs. Carter? The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, clipped, and professional. This is Officer Reynolds with the Florida Marine Patrol. I'm calling about your husband, Daniel Carter. The world around me blurred. There's been an accident, he continued. A boating incident off the coast of Key Largo. We recovered the wreckage, but we haven't been able to locate his body. I gripped the phone tighter. What do you mean you haven't? My breath caught in my throat. We're so sorry. Based on the conditions and the damage to the boat, we have every reason to believe Mr. Carter drowned. The currents in that area, a pause, as if he were searching for a gentler way to say it. They're strong. It's unlikely we'll recover remains. My fingers went numb. Daniel.
Gone.
The conversation blurred together. Words like tragic, accidental, presumed dead, but I barely registered them. By the time I hung up, my hands were shaking. I moved on autopilot after that, calling his sister, breaking the news to his family, pretending to be the grieving widow everyone expected me to be. Days passed in a haze of condolences and funeral arrangements. People brought flowers, casseroles, murmured words of comfort. I nodded at the right moments, let them hug me, but inside, I felt hollow. A closed casket memorial was scheduled since there was no body to bury. That part gnawed at me. Daniel was an experienced boater, cautious to a fault. And yet, no remains, no life jacket, no real explanation beyond. It happens sometimes. The unease sat in the back of my mind, but grief muffled it. I stood at his memorial service, dressed in black, staring at the framed photo of my husband. The man I had built a life with. The man I had trusted. And the man who, deep down, I wasn't sure was actually dead. I wasn't prepared for how complicated death was. One minute, people were offering condolences, and the next, I was buried under legal paperwork, phone calls, and financial decisions I wasn't ready to make. But I had no choice. The first red flag came when I met with the bank. I had expected to access our joint account easily. After all, I was his wife, the sole beneficiary. But when the banker pulled up our records, his frown deepened. "There's very little left in the account," he said cautiously. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? There should be over $200,000 in there." He turned the screen toward me. The balance read $3,482.97. My breath stalled. "That can't be right," I said, my voice sharper now. "Where's the money?" The banker scrolled through the recent transactions. Large withdrawals had been made in the months leading up to Daniel's death, some in cash, others wired to accounts I didn't recognize. I felt sick. Then there was the life insurance. I had expected a smooth payout, something to at least soften the financial blow. But when I called the insurance company, a too polite representative informed me that the claim was under review. "There seems to be an issue with the policy," she explained. "Your husband recently made changes to his beneficiaries. We're still verifying everything." "What changes?" I asked slowly. "I can't disclose that until the investigation is complete." My heart pounded. Daniel had made changes. Behind my back. I drove home in a fog, my mind racing. My grief blurred into something else, something sharper, more urgent. I sat at our desk that evening, sifting through months of bank statements, searching for answers. Then I found it. A name buried in the transaction history. Samantha Hayes. I didn't know who she was yet, but my gut told me one thing. Daniel Carter wasn't just gone. He had been planning to disappear all along. The name stared back at me, bold and undeniable. Samantha Hayes. A recurring transfer, twice a month, for over a year. The amounts varied, sometimes $2,000, other times as much as $10,000. The last transfer had been made 3 days before Daniel's accident. I scrolled further. More transactions. A luxury boutique in Miami. A high-end restaurant. A jewelry store. All places I had never been. I sat back in my chair, my pulse thrumming in my ears. Who the hell was Samantha Hayes? I pulled up a search engine and typed in the name. Nothing useful. No LinkedIn, no Facebook, no business registry. Just an ocean of irrelevant results. That's when I knew I needed help. It had been years since I last spoke to Caleb Reed, but I knew he was still the best in the business. He used to work fraud cases for the FBI before going private. More importantly, he had always hated Daniel. I found his number, hesitated for half a second, then called. "Emily Carter," he answered after 2 rings. His voice was warm, edged with something knowing. "Haven't heard from you in a while. I need you to look into someone." A pause. "Let me guess. Daniel?" My grip tightened on the phone. "Not exactly. A name, Samantha Hayes. I need to know who she is." Caleb didn't ask questions, not right away. He just sighed. "Send me everything you've got." That night, I barely slept, my mind spiraling through 100 possibilities. Maybe Samantha was just some affair. Maybe she was a secret daughter. God, I hope not. Maybe Daniel had a gambling problem and she was his bookie. But when Caleb called the next day, his voice was different, tight, cautious. "Emily," he said slowly, "Samantha Hayes doesn't exist." "What?" I ran her name through every database I have access to. No birth certificate, no social, no property records. Whoever Daniel was sending money to, she's either using a fake name or she doesn't officially exist at all. I swallowed hard. What the hell had my husband been involved in? The message arrived at 2:43 a.m. "Your husband isn't dead. Look in Miami." I stared at the screen, the glow of my phone illuminating the darkness of my bedroom. My heart pounded. No sender. No contact information. Just those 9 words. A joke? A mistake? A cruel scam? Or the truth? I tried to dismiss it, but sleep never came. By sunrise, I was at my laptop, doing something I hadn't done in weeks. I searched for Daniel Carter. His social media accounts had all been deactivated, just like I'd expected. But there was one thing I hadn't checked before. Login activity. I opened our shared streaming service. The account was still active. I clicked on device history. And there it was. A login. 3 days ago. Location: Miami, Florida. My stomach flipped. I sat frozen, my coffee cooling beside me. Daniel was supposed to be dead, but someone had accessed an account only he had the password to. I grabbed my phone and called Caleb. "I need you to track an IP address," I said, skipping the pleasantries. "Miami." He didn't hesitate. "Send it over." I paced the room, my thoughts colliding. If Daniel was alive, if he had faked his own death, what was the endgame? The money? The woman who didn't exist? And more importantly, who sent me that message? An hour later, Caleb called back. "You were right." His voice was grim. The login came from a condo in Brickell, Miami. High-end place. And guess what? I already knew. "He's there, isn't he?" A pause. "Oh yeah. And he's not alone." Miami was a city of illusions, perfectly curated social media moments, luxury cars leased for appearances, and men like Daniel, who lived off stolen dreams. I landed at 10:32 a.m., stepping off the plane with nothing but a carry-on and an agenda. Caleb was already waiting outside baggage claim, leaning against a rental SUV, with his usual unreadable expression. "I found her," he said without preamble as I climbed into the passenger seat. "And I found him." I exhaled slowly, gripping the armrest. "Tell me everything." Caleb handed me a photo, taken just hours earlier, a candid shot of a woman stepping out of a sleek white Tesla. She was young, no older than 28, with long, perfectly waved blonde hair and a designer purse dangling off one wrist. Samantha Hayes. And then I saw the second figure.
A man. Tall, fit, tan.
Wearing a linen button-down like he didn't have a care in the world. Daniel. Only not Daniel. Caleb pulled onto the highway, handing me a file with one hand. "Meet David Lawson. New identity, fresh start. He even got a new driver's license." I scanned the document, my stomach twisting. A fake name. A fake life. A fake widow me. Caleb parked across from a waterfront cafe. "Brace yourself," he muttered. And then I saw them. Samantha and Daniel, or David, as he was calling himself now, sitting at an outdoor table, sipping cocktails in the midday sun, laughing. His arm rested lazily over her chair. I clenched my jaw. "He doesn't look dead to me," I murmured. Caleb watched my reaction carefully. "You want to storm over there?" "No," I exhaled, forcing myself to think instead of react. "Not yet." A confrontation would be messy. No, this needed to be calculated. Controlled. Daniel thought he had gotten away with it. Thought he had outmaneuvered me. He had no idea what was coming. I spent the next 4 days following them, piecing together the details of their new life. Samantha had no idea. She thought she had married a wealthy businessman, a widower who had lost his first wife tragically young. They lived in a luxury Brickell high-rise, shopped on Ocean Drive, and dined at the kind of restaurants where reservations were booked months in advance. Caleb got into their financials. What he found only fueled my resolve. $2.3 million siphoned from my accounts over the past year. He was careful, Caleb admitted as he slid a flash drive across the hotel table. Started small. Took out just enough each time to avoid raising flags. Moved it into a series of offshore accounts before withdrawing it under the new name. I stared at the files. Daniel had spent over a decade underestimating me. Thinking I wouldn't notice. Thinking I'd be too emotional, too fragile, too naive to put the pieces together. Now he was playing house with a woman who had no clue she was living on stolen money. "I need proof," I murmured. "Something I can use against him." "You already have proof." "No," I said, staring out at the Miami skyline. "I need better proof. I need him to hang himself with his own rope." I spent the next day laying the groundwork, sifting through our old emails, our bank records, every legal document we'd ever signed together. Then I found it. The life insurance policy. Daniel had updated his beneficiaries just weeks before his death. And the new recipient? Samantha Hayes. I smiled to myself. The man thought he was brilliant, but he had left a trail of breadcrumbs so obvious a child could follow them. It was time to flip the script. I opened my laptop and sent an email. The subject line was simple. David Lawson, a multi-million-dollar business opportunity. Now, we wait. Daniel had always been greedy. He wasn't the type to settle. He always wanted more. More money. More control. More power. That's why I knew exactly how to trap him. I crafted the email carefully, making it sound just legitimate enough to be irresistible. From Alan Whitmore, Whitmore and Associates, London, to David Lawson. Subject: exclusive investment opportunity, high net worth clients only. Dear Mr. Lawson, I represent a consortium of European investors looking to expand into the US market. We are seeking highly liquid partners for a lucrative private equity venture involving offshore asset protection and capital transfers. Your name was referred to us as someone with experience in international finance. Given your successful business ventures, we believe you may be an ideal candidate. This opportunity is by invitation only and requires discretion. If you are interested, we can arrange a private consultation at an exclusive venue in Miami. Looking forward to your response. Sincerely, Alan Whitmore. Whitmore and Associates LLP. London, UK. I sat back, reading over the message. It was perfect, deliberately vague, full of buzzwords. Just enough to stroke his ego. Caleb made sure the email landed directly in Daniel's inbox, bypassing spam filters. Then we waited. I didn't expect a response right away. But Daniel never could resist an opportunity to make more money. It took less than 5 hours. From David Lawson to Alan Whitmore. Subject: exclusive investment opportunity, high net worth clients only. Mr. Whitmore. I'm very interested. When and where? Best. David Lawson. I smirked, forwarding the email to Caleb. He took the bait. Caleb chuckled. Of course he did. He's an idiot. I glanced at the Miami skyline outside my hotel window. Let's set up the meeting. 2 days later, everything was in place. Caleb had rented out an exclusive private club in Miami under our fake law firm's name. We'd gone all out, lavish decor, top-shelf whiskey, a team of actors playing associates. Every detail had to scream legitimacy to someone like Daniel. I wasn't going to be in the room, I didn't need to be, but I would be watching. I sat at a discreet corner table, heavily disguised, a sleek blonde wig, oversized sunglasses, a crisp white suit. From here, I had the perfect view of the entrance without being noticed. And then he walked in. Daniel, or David, as he now called himself, looked like a man who had won the lottery. His Rolex gleamed under the dim lighting, and his 2 white teeth flashed as he confidently shook hands with the lawyers. I watched as he took a seat, sipping on the expensive bourbon Caleb had provided, completely oblivious. One of Caleb's men, playing the role of an investment broker, leaned in. "Mr. Lawson, let's get straight to the point. We need someone who can move large sums discreetly." Daniel nodded eagerly. "That's my specialty." The hidden recording devices captured everything. "I have experience with offshore accounts, asset transfers, and liquidity management," Daniel bragged. "I've handled transactions worth millions." The man smiled. "So, you wouldn't have an issue moving, say, $5 million across borders with zero paper trails?" Daniel leaned back, smug. "Not at all." I clenched my fist under the table. There it was. Verbal proof. He had no idea he was signing his own downfall. The broker slid a confidentiality contract across the table. "We just need a signature." Daniel picked up the pen, grinning like a fool as he scribbled his name. And just like that, I had everything I needed to destroy him. I found Samantha exactly where I expected her, sipping overpriced coffee at an upscale boutique cafe in Brickell, wearing a ring that was funded by my stolen money. She didn't know it yet, but her world was about to crumble. I walked in, deliberately casual, my presence blending in with the other women browsing designer handbags and discussing weekend yacht parties. Caleb had already done his part. Samantha thought she was meeting an investor interested in a high-end brand collaboration. She looked up when I approached. "Are you Emily Carter?" I interrupted, sliding into the seat across from her before she could finish. She blinked, her perfect features shifting from confusion to something uneasy. I don't. "You don't know me," I said, "but you know my husband, Daniel Carter." The name alone was enough to make her freeze. "Excuse me?" Her fingers tightened around her coffee cup, the color draining from her face. "You must be mistaken. My husband's name is David Lawson?" I supplied, pulling a file from my bag and placing it between us. "That's one of his names, sure. But he was Daniel Carter first. The man you married is a con artist, a fraud, and a very much alive dead man." She didn't move. I opened the file. First came the marriage certificate, my marriage certificate, proving that Daniel and I were legally wed long before he ever met her. Then the bank records showing the money he stole from me, including deposits made to her lifestyle. And finally, the life insurance policy. Samantha's hands trembled as she scanned the documents, her breathing quick and shallow. This can't be real." I leaned in. "You're not just his wife, Samantha. You're his alibi. He faked his death and used you to cash out his new life. Did you really think it was a coincidence he married you so quickly after his tragedy?" Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't just from sadness. They were from fury. "That bastard," she whispered, her grip tightening on the papers. I gave her a moment before asking the real question. "Do you want revenge?" She looked up, her jaw tightening. "Tell me what to do." We only needed one last move, a way to trap Daniel so thoroughly he couldn't slither out of it. Samantha was more than willing to play the perfect wife, for just a little longer. She sent him a message later that night, her voice dripping with concern. "Baby, I just got a weird call about my accounts. Something about the investment deal? Should we check with the bank?" Daniel, the greedy idiot that he was, took the bait instantly. From David Lawson to Samantha Lawson. "Babe, don't worry. I'll handle it. I'll go to the bank first thing tomorrow and make sure everything's secure. Just stick to the plan."
Stick to the plan.
Little did he know, our plan was already in motion. The next morning, FBI agents were stationed around the bank Caleb had chosen, a well-monitored location with full surveillance. perfect for capturing a fraud in real time. I waited across the street, out of sight, but close enough to watch the moment it all fell apart. Samantha played her role flawlessly, walking in first, dressed elegantly as if nothing was wrong. She smiled at Daniel when he arrived, gave him a kiss on the cheek, acted like she wasn't about to bury him. He barely glanced around as he made his way to the bank teller, completely unaware of the agents, standing just a few feet behind him. Daniel handed over the transaction slip, preparing to move another $500,000 into an offshore account. That's when they closed in. David Lawson, also known as Daniel Carter? Daniel turned, confused. Then his face drained of color. FBI. Badges. Guns. Then his eyes locked on me through the cafe window across the street. I smiled. For the first time since this entire nightmare began, I saw true fear in his eyes. He tried to run. Big mistake. Within seconds, he was tackled to the floor, his arms wrenched behind his back as cuffs snapped into place. Daniel Carter, the agent said, "You are under arrest for fraud, identity theft, financial deception, and falsifying a death report." Samantha watched, arms crossed, no sympathy in her expression. Daniel thrashed, his voice frantic. "Samantha, baby, please. I can explain." She slapped him.
Hard.
The entire bank went silent. Then she leaned down, voice cold as ice. "Rot in hell, you lying piece of garbage." As they dragged him away, Daniel threw one last desperate glare at me. "You did this," he spat. I tilted my head. "Oh, sweetheart, I was just getting started." Daniel looked smaller in his county-issued jumpsuit, the arrogance drained from his face as he sat in the defendant's chair. For the first time in his life, he wasn't in control. I sat across from him in the courtroom, calm, collected, dressed in a sleek black suit that said power, not victim. Caleb sat beside me, and Samantha, now officially Samantha Hayes again, was on the witness list. The prosecutor laid out the charges: fraud, identity theft, financial deception, insurance fraud, falsifying legal documents, and obstruction of justice. Each one stacked neatly, a list of every mistake Daniel had made. And now it was time for me to bury him. I walked to the witness stand, my heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. I didn't look at Daniel. He wasn't worth it. Instead, I faced the jury. "My husband faked his own death," I said simply. "He stole millions from me, created a new identity, and married another woman under a fake name." I lifted a stack of documents and placed them on the evidence table one by one. Bank records, showing every penny he siphoned into hidden accounts. Surveillance footage, capturing him bragging about his financial crimes in our fake investment meeting. Marriage certificates, proving he had 2 wives at the same time. The jury's expressions darkened. Then came the final nail: the life insurance policy. Less than 3 weeks before his death, I continued, my voice calm but sharp. Daniel changed his life insurance beneficiary from me to his new wife. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Daniel shook his head, his lips moving silently as if trying to deny it, but the proof was undeniable. Samantha took the stand next, her voice steady, furious. "He lied to me about everything," she said. "I had no idea I was part of a scam." Then she turned toward him. "You destroyed your own life, Daniel. You have no one to blame but yourself." The judge didn't take long to rule. "Bail is denied," she said. "Given the nature of this case, the defendant is considered a flight risk. He will remain in custody until trial." Daniel's mouth fell open. "Wait, no." The bailiffs ignored him as they hauled him back to his cell. I sat back in my chair, a slow, satisfied breath filling my lungs. His con was over. The days following the trial were a media circus. Headlines like, "The Widower Conman, Man Fakes Death to Steal Millions." From wife to widow to warrior, Emily Carter reclaims her fortune. I didn't care about the press. I cared about closing every last door Daniel might try to slither through. And with Caleb's help, I did exactly that. By court order, we froze and seized every offshore account in Daniel's name. Every hidden asset, the condo in Miami, the luxury car, The stash of cash in a Bahamas safety deposit box was all confiscated. I got most of my money back. It wasn't about the cash. It was about winning. Samantha, now fully untangled from Daniel's mess, publicly disavowed him. He used me, she told reporters. He used everyone. And I will testify against him to make sure he pays for it. Daniel's family, who had grieved him, who had held a memorial for him, was done with him. His mother refused to even visit him in jail. His sister, once one of his strongest defenders, publicly disowned him. I mourned him, she told a journalist. I stood at his funeral. I thought I had lost my brother, but the truth is, I lost him a long time ago. Daniel had nothing left. No money, no family, no future. And as I stood in my office, fully free from his lies, I knew one thing for certain. I had won. By the time Daniel's trial date was set, he was no longer just another con man. He had become a national disgrace. The media had a field day with his story. The widower con man. How one man faked his death, stole millions, and got caught. Fake husband, fake name, real fraud. The story of Daniel Carter, aka David Lawson. It was everywhere, morning news segments, podcasts, viral Twitter threads breaking down every cruel, calculated move he had made. And it didn't stop there. Former colleagues came forward. A woman who worked in his old office described how he had always lived beyond his means, borrowing money from coworkers and never paying them back. Old friends emerged, too. A college roommate admitted Daniel had been running small-time scams even in his 20s, racking up credit card debt in other people's names, disappearing when bills came due. Then came the ex-girlfriends. One woman posted a detailed TikTok thread titled, "I dated the widower con man, and here's what I learned." I always knew something was off with Daniel, she said. He was a pathological liar. Told me he was in finance, but never had real money. Always had excuses. Turns out, he was practicing for the biggest scam of his life. The video went viral. People dug into every past business, every false identity, every lie he had ever told. His entire life unraveled in real time, and the world was watching. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in jail, watching his reputation burn. I knew because he tried to call me. The number came up as unknown on my phone. But I knew. I let it ring. Then I blocked the number.
He was nobody now.
For the first time in years, I was free. The legal battles were over. The money was back where it belonged. Daniel was rotting in a cell, waiting for his inevitable conviction. And I was thriving. I expanded my business, opening a second boutique in New York City. Orders flooded in, and my brand took off faster than I ever imagined. I moved into a new apartment, sleek and modern, with a view of the skyline. No shadows. No ghosts. And when I was ready, I started dating again. Not recklessly. Not to fill a void. But on my terms. I was sitting at a rooftop bar one evening when Caleb slid into the seat next to me, placing a glass of wine in front of me without asking. "You're glowing," he said, leaning back. "Feels good, doesn't it?" I smiled. More than I ever expected. He took a sip of his drink, watching me carefully. "You ever think about what's next?" "You mean for the business?" "No," he said, holding my gaze. "For you." A slow warmth spread through me. Caleb had been there through everything. Always steady. Always reliable. And maybe, just maybe, he had been waiting for me to see it. I tilted my glass toward him in a quiet toast. "To new beginnings," I said. He smirked. "To something better." And as I looked out over the city, knowing that Daniel Carter was nothing but a bad memory, I finally felt it. Closure. The letter arrived 6 months after his conviction. A plain white envelope, no return address, but I recognized his handwriting instantly. Daniel. Or what was left of him. I sat at my desk in my Manhattan office, the city skyline glowing through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The corporate headquarters of my growing business empire, a dream I had built, not in spite of him, but because of him. I didn't need to open the letter. I already knew what it would say. But curiosity won. "Emily, I know you hate me. I know I deserve it. But please, just hear me out. Prison is hell. I have nothing. No money. No family. No future. But you have all of that. You won. I see your name in the news, on business magazines, on television. You became everything I said you couldn't be. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need help.
Just anything. Please.
Daniel. I stared at the page, waiting for something. Anger, resentment, maybe even pity. But all I felt was nothing. Daniel Carter, the man who once thought he held all the power, was begging me for scraps. It was poetic. I folded the letter carefully and slid it into a frame. Not out of sentimentality, out of triumph. It would sit in my office as a reminder of everything I had survived, everything I had built, and the man who had tried to break me but only made me stronger. I stood, walking over to the bar cart in the corner, poured a glass of wine. The city stretched out before me, endless possibilities glowing in the distance. I raised my glass, whispering the words I had waited so long to say. He had no idea what was coming. And with that, I turned away from the past for good. Want to hear more of this? Then click on the video on the right-hand side, which is even more brutal.